Hi there, and welcome to the SunWest Distance Learning Center's Grade 9 Transition Night. My name is Trish Schilling, and I'm one of the academic advisors here at the DLC. I'm so glad that you could join us tonight, and hopefully over the next 45 minutes, we'll be able to answer most of your questions about moving into the high school scene. Before we begin, we'd love to know who's all here, who you are, where you're from, so let us know in the comments. And now I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Ryan Johnson, who's the principal here at the DLC, and get him to tell us a little bit about what you can expect tonight.
Thank you, Trish, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to, I think this is our third annual Grade 9 Transition Night into, like Trish said, into the high school world. There are a lot of topics to discuss tonight, and like Trish said, we're looking forward to hearing some comments as to where you're from, and so glad that you're able to join us. So without further ado, let's begin our presentation.
Okay, so before we do, we have a lot of information to cover. As an academic advisor, we work with the students individually to make their course plans as they move through grade 10 to 12. And so I'm happy to be here with you, Ryan, and to support you and to meet the students as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan in just a few minutes, but before we do, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the comment box, and we will try to answer them as we go along throughout the presentation rather than waiting until the end. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to you to start, Ryan.
Thank you. So we'll talk about first, obviously, tonight's the transition from grade 9 into grade 10 at the end of this school year. So I want to do a little bit of talking about the types of credits we have and what the courses look like and what your timetable is going to look like when you get into high school. So to begin, I just want to go through some quick terminology. So elementary, when we talk about elementary, we're referring to kindergarten to grade 6. We often talk about middle school being grade 7 and 9. And tonight you're going to hear me talk about secondary school or high school, and that's grades 10 to 12. And of course, after you have left our building and gone on to a post-secondary school, that is anything that's beyond high school. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a university. It could be SAS Polytech. It could be a certificate program in a number of different places. So whenever I talk about post-secondary, don't just assume that we're talking about universities. So for secondary education in grades 10 to 12, the province of Saskatchewan and the Ministry of Education manages all of those secondary courses. So we have to make sure in our building here that we're following all the curriculum. And all of our teachers here, we are an accredited school, so we have fully accredited teachers in Saskatchewan that follow the curriculum. We also have to focus on what we call credit requirements. And we'll get a lot deeper into that in just a few seconds. There are certain types of credits that you do need to graduate, and we'll discuss all of those. And then, of course, there's transcripts. And transcripts is basically a digital record. Basically, you can get a paper copy, but for the most part, it's digitally created, and it is housed in Regina at the Ministry of Education. And it's kind of just your official record of courses you've taken and the marks that you will have received. And I know that's going to be a little different for our grade 9s moving into grade 10, that they're moving into the percentage world. And so that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. And on the transcripts, that's where those marks are saved. So for curriculum, basically, it's just the outcomes or the skills that are being asked of each student. Each course has their own curriculum, and all of those outcomes are covered in our high school classes. Credit requirements. So for a student to graduate in Saskatchewan, they need to have 24 credits to receive their grade 12 diploma. We'll talk about the types of credits in just a minute, but a minimum of 5 of those have to be at that 30 level. And I'll discuss what a 30 level is in just a minute. So here are 3 types of credits that we have in the province of Saskatchewan. So as you enter into grade 10, it's pretty straightforward that those credits are have a number that have the number 10 behind it. So if you were to be enrolled in Science 10, you would see the number 10 after Science. If you were to move into grade 11, the number system does have a reason, but it is now, for if you were going to take history, it would be called History 20. And if you were to move into grade 12, those are all called 30 level credits. Now, the 0 in each one of those 2-digit numbers also tells a story. If it is a 0, for example, in History 20, the last digits, the singles digits, it is a 0. That tells me that is what we call a regular credit. If you see a 1 is the singles digit. So for example, if you were to take History 21, that's what we call a modified program. Those outcomes are dealt with in a little different way, where we move at a little slower pace in those courses. Some of them might need to be modified in terms of the level of topics being discussed. And if that's the case, if we've moved into that category, you would see a 21 or a 31 if it's at a grade 12 level. Very unlikely. There's one other number at the very back, and that is an 8. So if you were to take a 28 credit, that's what we call an alternate credit. And those are pretty specific and pretty small population of our students that would be needing alternate credits. And once again, when we get to that stage of deciding if you're going to be an alternate credit, we would be working with our student support team to manage those courses. So of the types of credits that were listed just prior in the slide, we have what we call compulsory or required credits. And those are credits that a student must have to graduate. There are no getting around it. There are also what we call required elective credits. So that is kind of a little bit different than the compulsory. You are still required to take them, but you will have a choice in the types of courses. In, for example, mathematics and in science, we have a different pathway depending on your interest level and what you were thinking about doing for post-secondary. Those are what we call the required elective credits. You still have to take some of those, but you do have a choice. And then the third type of credit is what we call an elective credit. And an elective credit is, well, you get to choose. There's a number of different courses that we offer here at the SAS DLC, and those courses would fall into that category of elective. So, for example, I'll just give you a couple here off the top of my head. If you were looking at maybe a trades course, we offer welding or mechanics or auto body. Those would fall under, well, they can fall under our practical and applied art courses as well as an elective. Maybe you're looking at hairstyle and aesthetics or hockey skills or something along those that are not your typical courses that you would see in a brick and mortar school. We've got a lot of those, and that's what makes us a lot different than a lot of schools. That there's something out there for everyone's interest, and those fall into those elective categories.
So Ryan, I just want to interrupt here for a minute. Apparently we're having a little bit of a problem with our comments on the YouTube. So if you do have questions or comments that you want to make, you can email them to our help desk at helpdesk@saskdlc.ca, and we'll respond to them that way. So that's
okay. Thanks.
Help desk at saskdlc.ca.
Okay, and we'll repeat that at the end of the slide if we're still having problems at the end of the presentation as well. So thank you. So going back into grade 10, and this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're here for, is to discuss what classes you'll be taking next year. So these are our compulsory required courses. So you need to take English Language Arts, or what we call ELA A10. You will also need to take ELA B10. You will also need to take Science 10. And then you have a choice between the next three. It's one of those. You have to take either Social Studies 10, History 10, or Native Studies 10. We have some options here, so you don't have to necessarily pick one of those right now. You will also need one grade 10 level math, and we'll talk about those math pathways in just a few minutes. But as you can see there, doing the math quickly, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes. Now, go back just a minute to the beginning of the slides. And when I mentioned that you need 24 credits to graduate. Now, once you start hitting grade 10, that's when the credits start to be counted. And those will be counted, like I mentioned before, on the transcript. So if we do some simple division, if we're going to take 3 years to graduate, and it doesn't have to be 3 years, you could be more than 3 years, but for the most part, 3 years is the most common amount of time from when you enter grade 10 to finish your grade 12. So if I'm going to do some division, 24 credits divided by 3 years equals 8 credits. So on a normal situation, a student will be taking 8 credits each year in grade 10, 8 credits in grade 11, and 8 credits in grade 12. And that would cover your 24 credits and be eligible for graduation in the province of Saskatchewan. Does that mean you have to take 8 credits and that's it? No, you can take more. Often kids will take 10 classes a year. And of course, more mathematics, that's 30 credits. It's okay to be over 24. It's just not okay to be under 24. That won't get you that diploma. So like I go back here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes listed. That seems a little shy of that 8. And that's where we're going to start later talking about those elective courses that we're going to fill in those remaining slots in your grad plan. So I think we got the next slide will be the grade 11 required credits. This one's even a little bit more confusing. Okay, 1 class? Is that right? Yes, it is right. Now, in grade 11, that's the year that we have a lot of choice. As you can see, you've basically got 7 or potentially 9 open slots there to choose your courses. You have to take ELA 20. There's only 1 English in grade 11. You have to take it. The rest, we have choices. And like I mentioned before, there are some required elective choices that we need to take. We talked about a math and a science and those types of things that you need to graduate as well at the 20 level. We'll get further along into the presentation. I'll talk more about those slides in a second. Let's look at grade 12 required credits. I'm in trouble speaking tonight. Sorry. So in grade 12, these are your compulsory credits. You need to take ELA A30, ELA B30, and then you need to take 1 of those 3 listed below. Most would be taking the Canadian Studies History 30 or the Canadian Studies 30, but you could also take Native Studies 30. All of those courses we have here at the SAS DLC for you to take. And once again, that's 3 out of a potential minimum of 8. So you got a lot of choice there as well. Going back to the grade 10, we don't have to go back to the slides, but let's focus on our grade 10 for next year right here off the beginning. And I think we're going to move into some of the slides for the math courses next. Oh, sorry, I'm 1 slide ahead. So here's some of our required electives. I was speaking already before this, and you can see there that you need to have at least 1 math at the 20 level or the 30 level. So we can't just stop math in grade 10. You need to take the math at the grade 11 level. And if you really like math, you would continue on into the 30 levels or the grade 12. But you only need 1. Most will take more. Same goes with the science pathways. You need at least 1 science at the 20 level. You can take more, and you can also take more at the 30 level. Another required elective that you must take in order to graduate is you need to take at least 1, what we call a social science credit. That could be, for example, history 20, psychology 20, psychology 30, law 30. Those are the typical ones that a student would take to fill that grad requirement. You also need to take 1 of Wellness 10, Phys Ed 20, or Phys Ed 30. Now, here at the SAS DLC and the SunWest DLC, we only offer Wellness 10. That's the most common physical education type class that we offer online. And you might seem, well, how do you do Phys Ed or Wellness online? Well, it does involve a little bit of recording your movements and sending those and submitting those videos to your instructor. But in Wellness, we also learn about how the body works and the kinematics and dynamics of how a human body reacts to sport or to exercise. And we learn about the biology of a human and how all of those connect to make you a healthy human being. So that's how we can offer that course online. And like I said, most students here at the DLC would be taking that Wellness 10. You also need, I'm going to go back 1 slide, sorry. The last point there is you also need 2 practical and applied art courses, or what we call the fine arts courses. So at the end of the slides, we'll go through the massive amount that we have in those categories, but just for a couple of examples, mechanics, construction, welding, electronics, agriculture equipment technician, parts technician, hairstyle and aesthetics. All of those would classify as one of those practical and applied arts. Well, what about the arts type courses? Well, we got visual art, we've got computer drafting, we have digital photography. All of those would also fall into that fine arts credits. And like I said, you need 2 of those classes in order for you to get your graduation requirements.
And Ryan, I just want to point out that they can look at our list of courses at our website at sasdlc.ca. They can explore through there, see what interests them, and if they click on a course, it will tell them what credit it would apply to, so they'll know where it would fit into their grad plan.
Right. Thank you for that, Trish. So here's our math strands or our math options. And this diagram here is outlining it over 3 years. And a lot of the times, like we have here with us is Trish Schilling, one of our academic advisors. This is how we talk with our students. We kind of do what we call reverse engineering in a way, where we look at potentially what the student is interested in when when they're going to be leaving the DLC and going on to post-secondary, because we look at those admission requirements for post-secondary, and that helps us plan backwards what courses our students need to take. But I'm going to go from the front part here and begin with the top left one where we see Workplace and Apprenticeship 10, and then the bottom one is Math Foundations and Pre-Calculus 10. I was lucky enough to speak with the grade 9 students yesterday when we had a quick Teams meeting in class. So I did explain this to the kids. And my recommendation, which you can take it or leave it, but I'm a former senior math teacher and senior science teacher. My recommendation for a grade 10 student is that you would take both the first Math Workplace and Apprenticeship 10 class and the Math Foundations and Pre-Calculus 10. You're going to often hear our academic advisors, including myself, talk about we don't want to close any doors for our students. And what I mean by that is if you were to only take the top strand, if you see there, the Workplace and Apprenticeship strand, and you decide halfway through grade 11 that you want to take Math Foundations 20. Well, if you weren't in the Math Foundations and Pre-Calculus 10 when you're in grade 10, you're going to have to go back and take that class because those are what we call prerequisites. So as you move from left to right, each class is a prerequisite for the one that follows it to the right. So if looking at above for Workplace and Apprenticeship 10, you need to have successfully completed that class to move on to Workplace and Apprenticeship 20. And then to move on to Workplace 30, you need to have, of course, completed the 20 level. Going down, same thing follows along that pathway. It's a very linear pathway, and it's what we call prerequisites. You'll often hear me talk about those when we get through the science slides as well. So often a lot of people, they'll say, I don't know what these maths are used for. I'm okay at math. I don't know which one to choose. I might not be going to become an engineer, but I do like math. So on the right-hand side, we've got a very quick kind of breakdown of if you're considering in post-secondary, if you're thinking about trades or workforce after the school, that top strand is probably the strand that we would recommend. There is a small, I guess, I'm going to say caveat to that is that often that Workplace and Apprenticeship strand, although it's very important for the trades and so on, post-secondary programs such as universities typically don't recognize that as an admission course. So they are looking for more of what we call the pure mathematics. And that's the bottom part of that slide here. So most students would follow the middle slide area. So they would go Foundations and Pre-Calc 10, and they would jump up to the Foundations 20, and then Foundations 30. Those are your typical math pathways for the majority of people that would be going on to post-secondary. If you were thinking about doing a field in post-secondary that is heavy in mathematics, such as engineering, such as commerce, law, those types of, even in medicine, they ask for a high level of mathematics. That bottom strand would be the typical strand that a high school student would take. Now, can you take more than just one strand? Absolutely. We have had kids that have done the bottom portion all from Pre-Calc 10. They've taken Pre-Calc 20. They've taken Pre-Calc 30. They've taken Calculus 30. But they just liked math a lot. So they decided, I've got electives to fill. I'm going to take another Foundations 20 math class. And I'm going to take Foundations 30. I just love math. That's okay. Some have even taken some of these ones at the top. Now, there's only 24 hours in a day. There's only basically 20 weeks in a semester. So we do realize that we can't take every course that we offer because we would never get through them all. But for someone who's really deep and has a love of mathematics, we can have those conversations and we can definitely set up a grad plan that will accommodate for that. if we move on to the next slide with the sciences, same thing goes there. In grade 10, you have to take the Science 10, and that's mandatory. And then after grade 10, you can choose one of the next 4 in the 20 levels for science. And if you remember back, you have to have at least one 20-level science to graduate. So I'm going to go to the top. Computer Science 20, its pathway is pretty straightforward. It leads into Computer Science 30. If you were thinking about something to do with computers, hey, that's a great pathway to begin and to get ready for post-secondary. If you're ever looking at the health field or the medical field, or just have an interest in the human body and how it works, that next strand is the Health Science 20, and then that is the prerequisite for what Biology 30 would be in grade 12. But there's also Environmental Science 20. So maybe you're looking at and you're interested in the science of the globe, science of the earth. Why is rain? All of those types of things that you might be interested in, that's something that you would discuss and learn about Environmental Science 20. And then once again, if you take that, you are eligible to move into Biology 30, or you're eligible to move into Earth Science 30, which is even more, I guess, more specific in terms of the science of what happens in terms of the Earth, the climate, the structure, the geology, all kinds of things that deal with science of the Earth. And that's another 30-level class. The bottom one is your Physical Science 20. Now, back in the day, if any moms or dads are watching, this was kind of like your Physics 20 and your Chemistry 20. They've combined those into one course, and it kind of makes sense that it leads into those next courses in the 30 level. So Physical Science 20 is kind of a combination of the little bit of Earth Science 20 with some geology in there, lots of physics in there, and lots of chemistry. So if you're thinking that you might want to be in the science field, if you're looking at, I want to be a physicist, the pathway you would take would follow Science 10, Physical Science 20, and then Physics 30. And if you're looking at chemistry, you'd follow that same path. But basically, like what I mentioned before, when we reverse engineer and we ask, what are you passionate about when you leave this high school? Our academic advisors look at that right-hand side and go backwards and help our kids pick the right pathway so that they're not closing doors. So that's our math and science pathways down there for you. And I think the next one is going to be our IT pathways.
Yep. Ryan, I'm just going to interrupt you once more. Our YouTube comment section is back on, so please feel free to ask any questions and we can help you along the way.
Fantastic. So this is a brand new pathway for the SunWest DLC and the SAS DLC. These are all relatively within 1 year old courses that we've just finished and designed and developed, and almost all of them are ready to go. But we've talked about the computer science pathways before. You can see that at the very beginning. But with IT fundamentals, that's a course that you can now move on to another pathway, and that is what we call the IT support pathway. That even branches out into 2 other types of paths where you could maybe focus on, I'm interested in computer security. I want to keep businesses safe from hackers and viruses around the world. That would be a strand that, if that interests you, definitely a green light in that area. Maybe I'm looking at, I want to be able to focus on networking. I want to be able to organize a business or a company to have safe internet, safe wireless access, all those types of building of a system. That's the networking part there. And then our bottom strand there, which is, it says coming soon. We are currently just wrapping up the developing of those courses. So if you're interested in what is digital media and web design, so you can see how do you use a computer to program visual material? How do you design websites? How do you design advertisements for companies? Those are courses that we are, like I said, we are currently in the development process of those. And we're hoping to have them ready for semester 1 for next year. But if not, they will be ready for semester 2. So there might be a little delay. And I think that kind of brings me to another point, though. You might be thinking, well, I'm only going into grade 10 next year. Why are you talking so much about the 20 levels? Well, we did talk about prerequisites, and that's important. But you can, if there are no prerequisites, take a 20-level course when you're in grade 10. And mind blow, you could even take a 30-level course in grade 10 if you are eligible and if there's no prerequisites, or maybe you do have a prerequisite sitting somewhere, and then you could take those. So don't just think that because you're going into grade 10 that you can only take 10 level classes. It's not super common that you would take a 20 level or a 30 level in grade 10, but it has happened, especially in the practical and applied arts world. So just want to remind you of that stat.
Before we change screens there, Ryan, I know one question we often get asked is, what does that L mean after the 10L, 20L?
What the L stands for is a locally determined option. So basically what that means is those curriculum were developed and designed by our teachers here at the SAS DLC and the SunWest DLC. We've submitted that curriculum to the Ministry of Education in Regina for the province, and they've approved that course as a curriculum that we are eligible to teach. You won't find that course anywhere else in the province. It's basically our property. Now that we will be moving province-wide, we will have a greater chance to share some of these courses with the rest of Saskatchewan. But that's what the L stands for. And when we get into the grad plan talking, they do have some role in terms of the electives, in terms of the categories. They don't count for a required class, but they count for an elective class. So they still count for a credit. It's just they would be put into a different category when our academic advisors sit down and go through your grad plan. And speaking of grad plans, here is I guess, in my opinion, the most important document that any high school kid takes and does when they get to any school, whether it be here or anywhere in Saskatchewan. This is what our academic advisors use to map out we'll call it a grad plan, a high school plan, because I was going to say 3-year plan, but it doesn't have to be in 3 years. If some people need 4 years to complete this, that's fine. Some people take 5 years, some people take 6. Here we have the freedom to move at our own pace. And let me go even the opposite end of the spectrum. Some kids have graduated in 2 years. They've obtained enough credits in 2 years. Very, very uncommon, but it can be done. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, most are 3-year plans. So that would be, like I said, 8 classes a year. And Trish, one of our academic advisors, when she phones you guys, which she'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation, she's going to be having these conversations with you and picking out courses and then registering you for those courses. We do all of that work for you, so you don't have to. You have the experts of Trish and her team being able to help and walk you through those questions, those decisions. They will map out this, if you want, the 3-year plan. Sometimes kids only want a 1-year plan. They want to just focus on grade 10. Well, that's fine too. But it's nice sometimes to have that 3-year plan so you know you're heading in the right direction. It gives you that kind of sense of there is a finish line here. And like we mentioned before, it's important to know if we got the prerequisites, that if you were thinking of a course 3 years down the road and you don't tell us, it could come back to bite you. And we don't want that to happen. We don't want to close those doors. So that's why often our academic advisors will talk about a 3-year plan and map these all out. But for next year, we're only going to focus on that very top part there, the green 10 required courses. And then you can see on the right-hand side in the kind of the blue area, that's where we kind of insert some of our elective courses. And we track all your marks and we track what courses you take and what semester you take. We're kind of your own personal planner when it comes to high school classes. So that's not happening in every school. So we're very proud that we are able to offer that service.
So Ryan, too, I do want to mention that these plans are not set in stone. If I contact you in a couple weeks and we decide you want to take this math or that science, and over the summer you decide something different, or even once the school year starts, early September, you decide this course isn't for me, we can make changes as we go to make your learning suitable for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment, Trish. We can go on to the next slide if you can, please. All right. So this is just a basic snapshot of, and I know that the writing there is relatively small, but as Trish mentioned before, if you go to our website, all of these courses are on there as well. I'm not going to go through and read them all, but I'm going to bring up a couple unique ones if you don't mind me staring closer to the screen, because I'm old and I can't read as good as I used to. So first one that pops into my head that I know, because like I mentioned before, I'm a senior math nerd, Calculus 30. We have probably the best Calculus 30 class in the province. I helped make it. A little biased, that's okay. You can see we've got those agricultural programs. We've got accounting. Another cool one that I didn't mention before with the visual arts strand is the animation. We work with the Vancouver School of Animation, which is a amazing company, and they help design some of the courses for that. So if you're thinking about that as a future career path, we've got you set up. The computer science we talked about, some of those trades, the construction, those courses, a lot of those trades courses have a work placement as well. So you would do about half your course theory based, which is basically learning online, and then the rest of the other half of the course you'd be out in a business learning with hands-on opportunities. So agriculture equipment technician is one that has a work-based placement. Pretty much almost all of our trades courses, to be honest with you, have a work-based placement: mechanics, construction, welding, electronics, parts. I mentioned AET. All of those do have those work-based components to it, which is we're finding that the industry is really excited about the whole province being able to take these courses and having the opportunities for kids to get out and test out that skill. And we've had, I don't think I have the stats 100% right, but the amount of kids that have gone through those trades courses, there have been many employment opportunities given to students who have completed those trades courses in those businesses. And the reason I know that is because they phone me and they ask for more kids. So we know that those programs are working and they're going to be huge in this province. Some of the other ones that are kind of interesting there, power engineering. That's if you're looking at becoming someone who wants to build steam plants or heating plants and cooling plants in large businesses, large buildings. Power engineering is a very high paying career. And once you've got your class, it kind of goes backwards. Once you've got your class 4, which basically will take about 2 years in high school to get, you're making more money than I am when you leave and get a job in power engineering. Let's just put it that way. So there's been times when I've thought, well, maybe I should just take these courses and switch gears, but I might not be that smart. You do have to love math for that, and it is a unique program, but very much an in-demand job opportunity for students as well. What else? Some of the visual art we talked about. Tourism 10, native studies. Paleontology is the study of dinosaurs. We have a lifeguard 30. That's it's not really a course, but if you are currently taking or have taken your first aid, CPR, and your Canadian Lifeguards Association certificates, you are eligible for a 30-level credit. Just submitting me your and your academic advisor your certificates. We pass those along to the ministry on your behalf, and you'll be granted a credit. What are some other interesting? Wildlife management is a new one that we're offering this year. Royal Conservatory of Music is very similar to the lifeguarding thing. So if you are big into music and you are currently in that program, we can use your examination results to provide you with a credit that you've already kind of earned, but haven't seen on what we call the transcript. So all kinds of different opportunities there. And that banner at the top, as simple as it sounds, so much choice. There is a lot of choice. And we do really recommend that you guys take the time, like Trish said, if you click on some of these courses, they will have the description of the course. So what is being covered in those courses, what type of credit they fall under, if it's compulsory elective or compulsory or just an elective, those are explained as well on that webpage. So it's a very valuable resource to I would suggest to read up on before our academic advisors do give you a call. So you have an idea of what they're talking about when Trish says, all right, well, what are some practical and applied art classes that you want to take to graduate? And if you've already done the research, you can have such more valuable questions if you do have them from our academic advisors, and it'll be that much better of a grad plan that we can create for you. So those
speaking of
questions
there. We are nearing the end of our presentation. So, make sure if you've got some questions that you want to answer tonight, feel free to get them on the comment section so we can help you out.
You bet. I'm not sure if there's another slide or if that's the end. If yeah, I think that was the last slide. So like Trish said, if you don't have questions now, we've got the help desk email there to you can submit your questions, and those will be passed along to our academic advisors. You've got that website link down below, sasdlc.ca. That's the most current list of our courses that we will be offering for the 23-24 school year. But if, yeah, I'll kind of just pause if there are any questions or comments or thoughts, excitement levels, nervousness.
And our academic advisors will be reaching out within the next few weeks to, answer any questions that you've come up with after this. We'll help you, through the course list and get you a plan in place for September. So you'll be ready to roll when the start dates come.
Absolutely. Well, if there's no more
looks like you must have covered everything so completely, Ryan, that there's no questions.
I talk a lot. They might have all left. But like Trish said, we're here to help. And like I mentioned before, the level of support that you have here from your academic advisors at the SunWest DLC and the SAS DLC is second to none. I have worked in this role as an academic advisor before I became the principal here, and I know what's out there. And this is by far, like I said, second to none in terms of quality and commitment to our students. So please take advantage of these people because they're there to help you. And they have the passion too. They want to see you succeed. So please reach out if you have any questions.
Well, it looks like we've got no questions tonight. So I just want to thank you, Ryan, for your expertise, I guess, going through these slides tonight and covering everything so well. And I want to thank everybody that joined us from home. And like I said, if you come up with questions when your academic advisor reaches out to you, feel free to ask them. Or if you want an answer before, reach out to our help desk and we'll be sure to help you. And we'll be talking with you very soon. So with that, thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.